Marjorie Greene had a moment during a recent Fox News interview that honestly was one of the most humiliating moments I think she has had happen to her in a very, very long time. And it was almost in a way you wouldn't expect. She just admits that she's absolutely not someone who should be in Congress. Obviously, that's not her wording, but in what she says, she just admits it. She admits what we all knew about her that is so wild and humiliating for her to say during an interview. So we're going to get to that. I have a few moments from this interview to kind of build up to the last one that is what I just explained. So hold for that. But first, moment to take a look at from this Fox News interview.
Things got heated. You said this about Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. He refused to object on January 6th. That's not what our base wanted. So a lot of the people who were backing Kevin McCarthy also didn't vote to certify the Electoral College results for Joe Biden. Do you think that's an important thing to the base even today?
Oh, it's very important. Well, what I was pointing out is the same people that conservatives were holding up in high esteem don't necessarily have those voting records while they're at the same time criticizing Kevin McCarthy, who does. Right. Kevin McCarthy did object on January 6th, and he's been a top target of the Democrats and the January 6th committee.
So do you believe that Joe Biden is a legitimately elected president?
Of course Joe Biden's the president. That's always a silly.
So again, we're holding, I have a few clips to get through, and then I'll show you the quite humiliating one, but that right there is something she does and so many people do so often when they get asked, was Biden legitimately elected? And they say, of course he's the president. Trying to avoid admitting that he was legitimately elected by saying he is the president. Well, yes, we know he's the president and we know it was legitimate, but do you know it was legitimate? So very aggravating there. But her advocating on behalf of her stance that Kevin McCarthy was the right person to be Speaker of the House. Next moment here.
Important thing that every single member has is their voting card. There's only 222 Republicans, and we need 218 to pass anything. That's where the magic happens. And so the big fight that happened this week, I think that a lot of it was really unnecessary and just a bunch of fanfare that helps popularity on the internet but doesn't produce results. Now we have a speaker that we can produce results with, and we have to do that by coming together to get 218.
Yeah.
That's where our power lies. And so with this rules package, let's be very real. We've got a Biden White House, we have a Democrat-controlled Senate, and we got to get to 218 to accomplish anything.
Right. Ultimately in Washington, it's about the math.
Interesting. She's calling out kind of the needless showmanship of many within her party there when that's kind of her bread and butter. And then she addresses this is the last one, then we'll get to the final one that I am hyping up. In this, she addresses the idea that many people had been running with, that she has some deal made for her to support Ken McCarthy, got some committee assignment or something of that sort, and that's why she's been supporting him. Here we go.
So could it be said, and this has gone on in the history of our republic, that you'd already cut your deal, that if McCarthy became Speaker, you wouldn't be treated as some fringe character, but you would have influence?
That's not at all true. As a matter of fact, I don't have any committee assignments yet. I've only submitted the same form that every other member gets to submit asking for committees. And I don't have a promise. I've already heard some people saying that what they're getting, because that was honestly what a lot of the negotiations in the end were all about. I have no promise. I have no deal. I only fully supported, I've said this all along, the agenda that's laid out there. It's even on Kevin McCarthy's website.
So could it be said, and...
Okay, so she's saying, no, I did not get some special deal, and that's why I supported him, despite a lot of my usual allies, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, going the other direction. She just supported his agenda. I don't believe her. I think she did get some promise behind the scenes, but that is what she's saying. Okay, here's this moment where she gets asked about her past kind of QAnon-y type views that she clearly has bought into. And take a look at her response. Very embarrassing, I would say.
Yeah.
And
well, just to deal with one bit of history, the Democrats stripped you of your committee assignments after you were elected. That was raw politics. But in fairness, didn't you also say around that period that you had been a follower of QAnon conspiracy theories and you had rethought this and you were no longer influenced by the group?
Well, like a lot of people today, I had easily gotten sucked into some things I'd seen on the internet, but that was dealt with quickly early on. I never campaigned on those things. That was not something I believed in. That's not what I ran for Congress on. So those are so far in the past.
Wow. So she just said, as a congresswoman, yeah, I bought into QAnon because I saw some stuff online. There is such a better way to dishonestly wiggle out of that. Not that she should do that, but I would expect it. She should go, oh, please, you're bringing up completely mischaracterizations of what I believed. And this is so far in the past. Let's talk about the real issues. But instead she goes, yeah, I saw some stuff online and so I started believing in QAnon. Okay, thank you for admitting that you absolutely should not be a congresswoman. If you can't understand why QAnon is not accurate, is not a legitimate telling depiction of reality, then you probably shouldn't be making decisions that impact the everyday lives of so many individuals in the United States of America. So again, that's what we know happened with her. But for her to say it is wild. We knew that she at some point saw things online and got sucked into a social media rabbit hole that makes her believe all these wacky things. But for her to admit that's her process of kind of getting sucked into conspiracy thinking is wild. And it indicates maybe, Marjorie, you shouldn't trust yourself in evaluating if the election was stolen, because I can tell you, as someone who has not fallen into those online rabbit holes that made me believe in QAnon, that you're also believing a conspiracy theory with the election being stolen. And you're able to admit that that happened with QAnon. Maybe you should start getting ready to admit that that happened with the election lies that you still perpetuate to this day. So wild. Let me know what you think. Luke P. Beasley on Twitter.